What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the NerdBall Fantasy Football Show. I am your humble host, Pete Rogers, and I am joined by just one of my fellow nerds. It is the resident old man, Clark Barnes. Clark, how you doing today?
Doing great, Pete.
Good. Did you have a productive week too? From a fantasy standpoint?
Week 2 is a heck of a lot better than week 1. I know everybody wants to hear about my fantasy team, so here's a story.
Good.
I did one of those wonderful fantasy football things where I threaded the needle on Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins' sack, I believe, gave me the 0.03 points that I needed as my opponent lost yards. And another game where I was playing Kirk Cousins, I won by 1.5. So that was just
wow.
That last drive was absolutely
really everything that you needed and more in a single. That's impressive. I also
at the beginning I was like, this is unreasonable. You should not even ask the gods for this. Just take one win.
Right. But you got both.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, that's almost as good as, well, actually that beats mine. Being able to, it is a rare thing when you need both a good game from a player and a bad game from a player in two different leagues in order to win, and you nail it. That takes true fantasy know-how. My week 2 story was I needed Stephon Diggs. I was playing my lovely wife Becca in our home league, and I had Stephon Diggs left. I was down by 25 points, and she had Justin Jefferson and Dawson Knox left, and I was like, well, I'm done. I'm toasted. This is it. Stephon Diggs goes on for 45 points, and Justin Jefferson and Dawson Knox add to 10 points.
Yeah.
And
Jefferson had an off night.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of reverse rebounds and rebounds in week 2. A reminder that week 1, it is a data point that we need to take seriously, but it is also just one data point. So
it is. The thing is it's so hard when it's the only data point you have. It's so hard not to panic, which we, of course, will get into. We're going to talk top 5 panic players. But before we do anything, let's get into our McLovin and Borskishko loves and hates of the week. We'll start with our McLovin love of the week. Clark, what did you love from this week?
I love that Nick Chubb is the top running back in fantasy football. He is one of my favorite running backs to watch. I kind of like a bigger running back.
Clark likes them big.
I like a little thickness,
a little chub to it.
Nothing wrong with Tony Pollard types. They're wonderful in their own right. I kind of lean more towards the Ezekiel Elliott and the Nick Chubb types. This probably won't last long, and it shouldn't, because Kareem Hunt's too good.
Yeah.
If anyone with a brain will split carries like they're doing in Cleveland. But Nick Chubb had a huge game, bounced back from his just 100 and some odd yards
bad game. Let's be
disappointing week 1. But I just love Nick Chubb. He's one of those players that I like in football, more than I like necessarily in fantasy, but I have him everywhere. So it's just nice to see him atop the leaderboard at running back. That's
you love to see it. And it's something too where you said you don't know how long it's going to last because Kareem Hunt will get involved, but there are very few backfields in which it is such a stark contrast in terms of those roles. And we have seen both of those players put up RB1 numbers throughout a full season while sharing a backfield together. So there's nothing to think that still couldn't happen. Nick Chubb's not going to score 3 touchdowns a game, but he can make his touchdown production can make up for the fact that he doesn't see any passing game work, and so what basically is you're hoping that Kareem Hunt is that PPR monster because he gets a bunch of work in the passing game, and Kareem Hunt is that, Nick Chubb is that standard league / half point monster because he gets all the touchdowns.
Yeah. And I 100% understand splitting the backfield. Why Nick Chubb has been relegated as a back who can't pass or pass protect receive or catch passes, and why Kareem Hunt has been relegated as a scat back type is that they're both very good at both roles. I mean, Kareem Hunt's probably a little bit better as a pass catcher.
Yeah, let's not forget that Kareem Hunt was one of the best running backs in the league with the Chiefs.
Yeah,
he can do it all.
They're both well-rounded players, but it's not a stupid deployment because I do think Kareem Hunt's a little bit better in the passing game, and I think Chubb's a little bit better of a runner. But anyway,
Yeah.
We can talk Cleveland's backfield all day because that's the only show in Cleveland. Boy, Jacoby Brissett should not be a quarterback of an NFL football team.
He did. I mean, this week against the who'd they lose to? Jets.
The Jets.
I know. That's lowly. The fact that Joe Flacco is averaging like 300 plus yards a game is all right. I'm losing my Jacoby Brissett tangent because I want to go on a Joe Flacco tangent and talk about, do the Jets bring back Zach Wilson when he's healthy?
I mean, yeah.
Do you know?
When your boss's boss
true.
tells you to do something, you do it.
Yeah, it's true. It is incredible that Joe Flacco under center and the Jets are like, the offense is airing it out. They look great.
They're okay.
Yeah.
That situation reminds me so much of I just finished watching the Panthers and Giants remix, you know. God, man, Baker Mayfield, not good. Just absolutely surrounded by talent.
Yeah.
And somehow Shi Smith is getting, it says 5 targets, but I swear he threw to Shi Smith all game. And so like penalties don't count as targets and things like that. But why is Shi Smith getting like 8, 9, 10 targets? I'm not hating on him.
But why is DJ Moore and why is Christian McCaffrey not involved in the pass?
Right. And I mean, no offense to Shi Smith, young player.
Shy.
I'm not talking bad about him, but DJ Moore's better. Right. I mean, let's figure out a way to get DJ Moore the ball.
Yes. I feel like that's something we can all agree on. My love for this week, excuse me. And as I say this, I know that we've just talked about a backfield that is a committee, but it feels like to me, we are having fewer backfield committees so far this season. Through 2 weeks, it feels like many of those backfields that we were worried about have kind of leveled out to having a clear number one guy. Now, it might not be the guy that we anticipated, a la Jacksonville, where everyone was certain Travis Etienne was going to be the guy there, and it's been Mr. James Robinson. Never doubt that, man. But like in Philadelphia, Miles Sanders is very clearly the RB1 in Philly, which is lovely to see for me because I got some Miles Sanders dynasty shares that are all doing well for your boy. The Patriots backfield is about to even out simply due to injuries. We're finally going to have Ramondre Stevenson season with Damian. Yeah. Well, just Damian Harrison. Damian Harris is dealing with an ankle injury, I think. Ty Montgomery we talked about is on the IR. Yeah. It's been that very crowded backfield has been shuffled down. I know that the 49ers just went out and signed. They brought Tevin Coleman to their practice squad. They added someone else too, but like you basically has now been Jeff Wilson because of injuries. It just feels like a lot of those backfields that we were very worried about in terms of like, how are these shares going to matriculate? That worry has been unfounded, which I, as a fantasy manager, love.
That's a good love. And I know that I'm going to do a plug here for our other podcast, Nerding Out with Nick Ford, featuring last week, the brilliant and wonderful Matt Waldman. We touched on the San Francisco backfield. And if you want to hear an absolute humdinger of a little inside NFL talk, I know I probably shouldn't tell you this, but at least just listen to the end. About the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's like the last 15 minutes.
It's mind-blowing. Matt Waldman just bringing it.
It is a story where after you hear it, you're like, oh, wow. Everything of the Kyle Shanahan 49ers makes so much sense right now.
Just thanks for Waldman to come in and for Bottaford to allow me to come sit in the room. But yeah, a lot of the running back situations are shaking out. And like you mentioned, maybe not so many committees, but also a lot of committees that we thought would be good committees are good committees. Yeah. Like the AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. Like that's a good, fine committee.
I think if Dak was healthy, the Zeke Tony Pollard committee would be much more profitable. As is, Tony Pollard has been given fantasy returns. Ezekiel Elliott, not looking great as my my RB2 in my home league, but he got benched this week and I prospered.
Yeah, I think if you were on the Elliott bus like I am, you're just going down with the ship.
We're riding it. We're riding it until it crashes.
One way or the other. Anyway, we'll get to the worryometer. Perhaps one of these folks may make an appearance, and more on the Jets to come as well.
Ooh, well, let's get into then our Boris Krishko hate of the week. I will start us off with something that I hate. And it's, a part of football. It's a part of fantasy football. But man, did I hate seeing Trey Lance's ankle face the wrong direction and his season cut short. It's just one of those instances where you're like a player who has so much promise and so much potential, and you spend the whole offseason, like basically the whole fantasy community hyped this man up to being, just like a top 5 fantasy quarterback, despite never having played a full season as a starter. But the offense, in Shanahan's system and the weapons that are around him and the talent that he brings to the table, it was just a tantalizing pairing. And it's a bummer that 2 weeks into the season, he's gone for the year, and that we don't, they've talked about maybe he'll come back at the end of the year, but for fantasy purposes, you're moving on at this point. I just dropped all my fab basically to get Tua off of waivers in order to help replace Trey Lance. And so, yeah, it's a bummer when anytime a player gets injured. And it's obviously a real bummer when it's like a player who's young, who we haven't really seen anything from, and who entered the year with a whole bunch of hype. And now we have to wait another year before that hype maybe manifests.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess I should have waited on my excitement. If you want to hear more about Trey Lance, RG3, Kyle, and Mike Shanahan, check out that other pod.
I don't know if we've mentioned this, but Matt Waldman, dropping some knowledge.
Injuries suck. Hopefully he'll just come back next season and be full go. Jimmy G probably next year is going to be gone unless something
somehow magically
really...
he's going to still stay on this team.
Yeah. I think part of his deal was he took a lot less money so that he had the no trade clause, which again, he can approve if he wants, and no franchise tag next year. So he's free man, which doesn't happen for quarterbacks very often. Kirk Cousins has paid that off. I don't think Jimmy G is quite that good, but good for him. It'll be interesting.
What's your hate for this week?
I have one sneaky hate of the week, and then we'll get to the real hate of the week. Mike Evans getting suspended. I don't know if that's been upheld. I try to do radio silence.
It has been, which is, I agree with you, bullshit in my opinion.
I'm not 5 years old, but who starts it is important. That is, don't start no shit, won't be no shit.
Yes.
And I didn't think that Mike Evans did anything egregious or anything. I watched the game.
There was a fight. It was a fight. It wasn't. I think it's like built upon. They have a history. He's had past infractions with Marshawn Lattimore. They play each other all the time. The thing to me was just like, I was surprised at how big of a reaction Lattimore must have said some shit to Tom Brady, because the reaction that like the whole team had on Lattimore was impressive. That is some protecting your quarterback right there.
Yeah. I don't know. Disappointed. I guess
Lattimore said he's coming for Giselle.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like watching Tom Brady. I was like, man, this guy is melting down out there.
Oh, don't worry. We're talking about Brady later.
Okay. Anyway, my real hate of the week is I try to watch all the games to have a better idea of what's happening, because we have a lot of good stats at the site. So I like to pepper in a little, what did I see? Watching the Steelers offense has been excruciating. If this is what you're going to get out of Mitch Trubisky, why are we not playing Kenny Pickett? I was talking about Jacoby Brissett, and he doesn't add value to the offense. Mitch Trubisky adds 0 to this offense. Why are we being forced to watch this?
The only thing that Mitch Trubisky does that's good is pepper Deontay Johnson with 1 billion targets. Outside of that, get Kenny Pickett into the game. Let's see what this kid can do. And the thing is like, you have to, like, this is inevitability unless Mitchell Trubisky like magically turns it around or has just like a game. The Pittsburgh crowd is going to be starting to call for their home faithful.
They were cheering Kenny, and I hate that. Like, that makes me feel so Larry David Seinfeld uncomfortable. But they should start Pickett. And look, if Pickett goes out there and wets the bed, put Trubisky back in. You don't have to. It's not like you can't go the other way. Just get him in there and see if he can add any spark to the offense.
Some sort, because the thing is like, you have, as the Steelers have proven with their track record, no team in the NFL drafts wide receivers better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like, you've got Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens there, plus Pat Freiermuth, who's become a very,
very good tight end.
Yep, very good tight end. Najee Harris, who could be very involved in a passing game and also needs at least some modicum of a passing game to exist so that he doesn't face 13 stacked boxes when he runs in. So it's just like, it doesn't make sense. Mike Tomlin's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Why is the rookie not in? Which makes me think that maybe that's the ultimate plan. And Pickett needed a little bit more time to get acclimated with things. And that's what Tomlin's giving him before throwing him into the fire. Who knows? I'm sure there's behind the scenes shit that is weighing on, obviously this decision was not made willy-nilly, but I agree with you. There's so much fantasy potential on the Steelers roster. Give us a quarterback who maybe can utilize all that. We know Mitchell Trubisky can't utilize all that. Give me a quarterback who has the potential to utilize all that.
Just give him a shot. Okay. Yeah.
Give him a shot.
It could be a 3-hour show if I kept going. But yeah, I mean, and look, it's not all Trubisky's fault or anything, but like,
it doesn't help when you have an offensive line that can't block worth a damn.
Yeah. And okay, that's fair, but that ain't going away.
No.
So
we'll be, who the Steelers play the Browns on Thursday night.
Oh my God, that was okay. We've returned to
Thursday night being just the pinnacle of television.
Right.
After we were treated with a couple of a Chargers Chiefs game was good, except for the fact that the Chargers somehow managed to lose it.
Oh man, that late pick 6 was like
crushing. It was
killer.
It's also just like the head coach. What's his name? Why am I spacing his name? Staley? Yeah. You have like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. Mike Williams was on a tear throughout the first quarter. Why are we just all of a sudden just dropping all of our Mike Williams targets?
I think the Chargers are cursed. I was thinking about this.
They are
taking a walk the other day. Eli Manning. I remember the Eli Manning draft, and the uppity opinions about how his daddy Archie's running the show. Eli just needs to be a man. Whenever you hear one of these talking head football people talk about be a man, it just means usually do the dumbass thing that's been assigned to you rather than think and make decisions for yourself like a human being.
Men don't make decisions for themselves. We do the orders they're instructed.
I mean, according to everyone loves Raymond, sure. But anyway, like that, I remember at the time thinking like, wow, that's really weird that they would kind of single out the Chargers and that they would be okay with the Giants. It's not like the Giants have been any good for a long time. Boy, the Chargers may just actually be legit. Went to New Orleans and something happened. Cursed.
And the thing is that like even when they have good things that you think will push them past the curse, it still crops up, right? Yep. You have Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, freaking Gerald Everett, like this. And then that's not even to mention the defensive side of the ball. Like this should be one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. And yet somehow they can't get out of their own way because they're the Los Angeles Chargers.
I think it'll be top. I think they're going to be awesome. I think they're going to be top 5. This team has a really good opportunity to break that curse. But boy, just watching that game against Kansas City, I was waiting. I was like, when's it going to happen? And then boom, right.
You're like, oh, yep, there it is. And the Chargers have lost this game.
Oh, and like I heard Lawrence's ribs, or not Lawrence, Justin Herbert's ribs. That's going to be rough. I mean, when you say like it's a pain management issue, it's like it's an excruciatingly painful thing.
Yeah,
like it's not some. Oh well, if he's just tough, it's okay. No,
he'll just fight through it.
Ugh, I'm sure they'll shoot him up and.
Oh yeah, well, and puncture his lung.
That was I think the funniest tweet is somebody said like, I hope they have a new guy doing that,
and they don't.
Anyway.
They don't. He is the one who is doing Justin Herbert's rib surgery or whatever, whatever is going to treat the rib is the same guy who's currently being sued for $5 million by Tyrod Taylor.
Well,
Chargers,
the NFL is an interesting space.
Isn't it? Isn't it just? All right, let's move on to talking about week 3 action, and we're going to give our must starts. Since it's just the 2 of us, we're each going to give 2 so that you out there get some good must-start content. Clark, why don't you start us off? Who's a must-start for you this week in fantasy?
Yeah, so the Cardinals are looking not great. they pulled it out against the Raiders, who are also probably going to be not great. Fire up all of your Rams in a second consecutive get right game, and fire up Allen Robinson. Saw 5 targets, 4 catches, 50 some odd yards, and a touchdown. I think we build on that this year, or this week 3. You're probably a little worried, but he bailed you out with the touchdown. I think better things to come for Allen Robinson are on the horizon. So if he's a borderline start for you, I'd lead Robinson this week.
Yeah, 100% agree. Patty just updated his NEF rankings for the year, and the Cardinals defense comes in at a whopping 32nd in the NFL per his NEF ratings. So they are bad. They have not been able to cover anyone. So yes, I love the call of firing up your Rams. I think Matthew Stafford is, it has a chance for like a complete smash week. Allen Robinson, obviously Cooper Kupp is probably going to put up, 15 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns somehow. Also, I thought that this was going to change after week 1. I thought this was just a week 1 anomaly. Tyler Higby has like a 25% target share for the Rams right now, which is something not to be overlooked, especially against the Cardinals, who got taken to school by Travis Kelce in week 1 and Darren Waller in week 2. Like, first of all, murderer's row of tight ends there to start the year.
Yeah.
But you can't cover them and you're going to get taken advantage of. So I think Tyler Higby is another good call for firing up. I know I wrote him as a ghost in my week 2 roasting ghosts, week 3 roasting ghosts coming out tomorrow. And I have Tyler Higby as actually my roast this week because I learn from my lessons, Clark. And that is what is the most important thing in life, is if you don't learn from your lessons, history will repeat itself. Or what was yours? History doesn't maybe repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Yeah, I think that's Mark Twain. I would love to take
that. Sounds like that sounds like a Twainism. A Twain. All right, one of my must starts this week. I was debating between him and the running back who I did write as my roast for this week, but I have to mention David Montgomery, and I tweeted about this. David Montgomery going against the Houston Texans. First of all, the Texans allowing the most rushing yards to the position, the 7th most fantasy points to the position. That defense is not stopping anything right now. But the thing that I love about David Montgomery, talking about these backfields that are not at all committees, Montgomery is the 2nd running back in the league in terms of target share. He has a 21.4% target share, which is not much because Justin Fields has thrown the ball 11 times so far this season. But still, a lot of those passes, 21% of those passes are going to David Montgomery. And he has over 70% of the Bears' backfield attempts, which is 7th among running backs so far this year. So David Montgomery is getting an elite workload, and he's in an extremely plus matchup. It just feels like it is all in the makings for David Montgomery to put forth easy RB1 week this week, and maybe even like a top 7, top 6 performance where he's going to be rushing for 100 plus yards, maybe a couple scores, and really pays out for DFS lineups and pays out for Montgomery managers.
I like that one. I started Montgomery week 1, hated it, just stuck with him week 2, didn't get a touchdown, but got a lot of work and looked good against the Packers. The Texans offense is atrocious. I mean, we're talking about how bad the Steelers look. Fair analysis says Davis Mills,
but at least they put him in the game.
Still in the running for best quarterback of that class, by the way. And he's not
a
good.
Detriment to that class.
Yeah. The Broncos getting the Texans was a gift from the gods.
Yes.
And they still barely squeaked it out. I mean, they made that thing interesting. The Texans aren't going to score. And the Bears might not either, but that game's going to be close. David Montgomery should get as much as he can handle. Might even be a good start for Herbert, too.
Khalil Herbert,
I think.
Yeah. I was trying to see if I could quickly bring up the quarterbacks in that class so that we could have a lively debate about whom.
Oh, it was Lance,
Fields, Mac
Jones, Davis Mills.
Davis Mills, third to last quarterback taken there. Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. I think we can confidently say Davis Mills is better than Zach Wilson.
Wow, let's not be mean, but
I wasn't being mean. I'm just
it's. I mean,
I'm just stating
so
facts.
far,
I'm just so
yeah.
far. I mean, that's all we can work with, Clark. That's why we all react strongly to week one.
That's right.
Who's another must start for you this week?
Other must start. We're going back to the wide receiver.
Love it.
You mentioned Joe Flacco doing old veteran quarterback things. This is 2 weeks in a row that Garen Wilson's had a really good amount of targets and very high leverage targets. So week one didn't quite work out. Good coverage, rookie jitters, whatever. Week two, it all worked out. So he's figured it out and had a really big game. Yeah. There's no reason for this to change. I know he's young, but he's the best big wide receiver that the Jets have. No hate on Elijah Moore. But when they need a deep ball or when they get into the red zone and have a passing opportunity, it is all going to Wilson. So maybe not 30 points, 30 PPR points again this week. But I mean, there's no reason not to start Wilson until.
Oh yeah. And chances are you went out this week and spent, if you have Wilson, either you drafted him, good on you, and you're a Jets fan, or you went out and spent a bunch of fab to get him. And so start him this week. Start him against the Bengals, especially since the Bengals defense has been good to start the year. But if this turns into just an all out throw the ball around and let's see who gets to 41st, then you're going to want Joe Flacco's number one target. Who's Garen Wilson? Because Joe Flacco's throwing the ball around really well.
Every bounce that went the Bengals' way last year is not going their way this year. And Joe Burrow's not playing flawless, but he's still playing really well. I mean, he looks good. It's not perfect, but when they're down 7 and there's a minute and a half left and they get the ball, I'm like, Burrow's probably going to score.
Yeah. It just goes to show you how, because if you compare, I know the Rams had a really bad start in week one, but compare your confidence to the Rams as to your confidence in the Bengals after 2 weeks. It just goes to show kind of how magical that season was. And nothing against I think this offense will eventually click to where it was, but it was also just playing on a whole nother level last year, a level that is not its norm, and nor should people were drafting it to be its norm. And maybe that's coming home to roost a little bit. All right, my final must start for this week. I did write about him. He is my wide receiver roast of the week. And it is a little bit of homerism. It's a little bit of putting good vibes out there because, man, wouldn't it be lovely if the Patriots beat the Ravens? Probably not going to happen. But I will tell you, I am confidently firing up Jacoby Myers this week because this Ravens secondary has been roasted to start this year by both Joe Flacco and Tua Tagovailoa, going over 300 yards. They've allowed the most half-point PPR fantasy points to wide receivers as a whole. And also, this is the beautiful thing, Clark, specifically to slot receivers, they've given up 72 half-point PPR points to the position. And it shouldn't surprise you to hear that Jacoby Myers is 6th in the league in slot targets, 10th in slot snaps, and 13th in slot yards. So he is clearly the slot receiver for the New England Patriots. And he's also clearly Mac Jones's number one go-to wide receiver, leading the Patriots in targets by, I think, 8 targets. He coming off of a double-digit target game against the Steelers, in which they won. I think Jacoby Myers in a plus matchup is going to see it, and in a matchup where the Ravens might be putting on the Patriots hard and fast to start. And Mac Jones has got to throw their way into making this a mildly competitive game. He's going to be looking to Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, give me 8 catches, 80 yards, and a score, and we're riding high.
Yeah, I like Myers. He's clearly the best receiver on the Patriots. And like you said, he's Mac Jones' favorites. Unfortunately, this really, I think, hinges on, are you in PPR or not? Because
Good
Myers, point. I don't know if he hung out with Julio Jones and picked up that touchdown allergy or what, but they just do not seem to target Myers in the end zone. I don't get it. He's very good, but he's open all the time. And Mac Jones loves him. It's fun to watch him play. He's one of those smaller guys. It's fun to watch play. So I think another 8-9 catches against the Ravens is totally doable. And I like your prediction of the Ravens putting it on him. I mean, they put it on the Dolphins too.
They did. And then Tua was able to throw his way back in there. Can Mac Jones do that? No, not with Pat Patricia calling the plays, but
yeah, I mean, I think the Patriots are still a little just kind of slow in general, and they're slow and tough, right? But the Ravens are fast and tough, and so
It
that's
just
gonna be a
also
good
feels
game.
like the Patriots, unless, and now I'll say this, since I have moved to Minnesota, I don't get Patriots games, local access television. So I've not watched the Patriots play so far this season. So maybe magically Belichick's decided to completely change his linebacker ethos and has drafted and it's outfitted the middle of his defense with a bunch of small, hyper athletic guys. But that is not Belichick's MO. Belichick loves to have big, bulky linebackers who come down and hit hard, which doesn't really go well when you are trying to shut down Lamar Jackson's scrambling ability, whom can outrun even the fastest DBs on the field. So it doesn't help when your front seven can, runs about a 5.5 40 combined.
Yeah, I mean, Judon's a boss, but that's
your best guy.
I mean, well, they're all good, but like,
yeah.
Yeah.
You need to have Judon has to have a special game in order to like put pressure on Lamar to the point where Lamar's not just going to do MVP things, which he's already been doing this year. Lamar Jackson coming for that second MVP because he bet on himself and is going to get paid. Can I also quickly, since we're talking about the Patriots, I want to quickly read this quote from Belichick because this is Bill Belichick. There are few people in this world who understand how to get under your opponent's skin and how to make them unprepared for the games ahead. He was asked by Mike Giardi, Lamar Jackson came in with questions about whether or not he could handle being in the pocket. Seems like he's answered some of those. Bill Belichick responded with, without a doubt, MVP style candidate. Wait until we see his contract. That will answer them. Love it. Love you, Bill Belichick, for being like, yeah, well, we'll see how much the Ravens pay this man because they're going to pay him a lot. He's going to have to be. He's an MVP. And the Ravens are like, oh, you son of a bitch. Driving up that price.
That's interesting. I'll say it now. I hope it doesn't come to this, but I hope Lamar Jackson sits out if he doesn't get a contract. I really hate the franchise tag. It's such a ugh.
It is.
We'll save the players union talk for the off season though.
Top 5 player unions coming next week. Speaking of top 5, I know it was originally top 10, but then I was like, you know what? Top 10 is a lot. And we do love to pontificate and speak at length about each pick that someone makes. And doing that for 10 times makes it a long show. We like our shows tight. We like our shows concise so that you can just pop in the earbuds, tune in and listen, me ramble about how concise our show is. That's concision right there. We're 2 weeks into the NFL season, Clark. It is time to look at players who we are worried about. Let's see what the panic level is. And so I have given you, I'm about to give my top 5 players whom I am worried about heading into the rest of the fantasy season. If there's someone on this list who you do thinks deserves to be on this list, both President Old Man, let me know, or you, the listeners, let us know. And we'll start at number 5. And number 5 is kind of a token guy. Is he really number 5? Maybe not, but I had to put him on here because Derrick Henry's start to the season has been worrisome. Now, there are many factors here. The things that have me most worried, though, is not so much his usage. It's the fact that the Titans might be just so bad that he gets game scripted out of more games than not, like what we saw against the Bills. And for people who spent a very high pick in order to get Derrick Henry as their RB1, that is not something we want to see. He only played 46% of the snaps against the Buffalo Bills because they were getting blown out so much. He saw 13 touches. His touch count has been there, and he has saved, he's hasn't really been efficient. I was going to say he's been mildly efficient. He has not been efficient at all. He is still recovering from his injury, but the Titans might just not be good anymore and good enough to rely on Henry. That all being said, he's number 5 for me and a token number 5 because it's not like Mike Vrabel has forgotten who makes this offense tick. And they're going to keep giving the ball to Derrick Henry, and eventually Derrick Henry is going to be Derrick Henry. But I'm worried. A little worried here.
So I had no worries after week 1 just because we had so much volume. Henry didn't break off a long run or have a bunch of 8, 9, 10 yard runs like he usually does. But that just happens sometimes. 20 carries will take it. Week 2, Bills are awesome. Like you said, they blew out the Titans, but the Titans lost Taylor Lewan. Don't know how long he's going to be gone. Starting left tackle, pretty important position for the run game. Derrick Henry is on watch for me. And I think you nailed the reason why. Not so much necessarily that maybe Henry has taken a huge step back, but if the Titans aren't good, it's really hard to get those good situations to just run your big power back up the middle. So he's on watch for me. I don't know what you can do with that information. I mean, if someone wants to give you the world for Derrick Henry, of course, I don't think you can sell him. I think I'm just going to write it out. And I guess on the worry-o-meter of a 5 being dropping and 1 being no concern at all, I think we're moving up to a 2.
Yeah. I would say like if there is a player who you think is a buy low candidate and someone is like, Derrick Henry feels like a guy who I would be willing to sell if I think that if I'm certain that my return is going to, perform well. Like there's going to be someone in your league who wants to buy low on Derrick Henry. And if you can buy low on one of their players or just take it for value and get someone who's maybe doesn't have the ceiling of Derrick Henry, but has a very more stable floor so far this season, I'm not against it.
Titans have the Raiders next. That should be good. And then they have the Colts.
That should also be good.
The Colts are going to be a get right game. So I just
and that's
write
another
it out
thing
with
too.
Henry.
Yeah, another reason to not get too worried about Derrick Henry is that he plays in the AFC South, and they haven't played an AFC South opponent yet. The Colts, the Texans, the Jaguars, none of those teams. Derrick Henry can do work against them and make us all forget all of our worries.
One of my snarky love of the weeks was the Jaguars leading the AFC South, but I decided to be nice. So,
all right, my number 4 player who I'm worried about. I'm bouncing between 3 different players here, Clark. Initially, I had CeeDee Lamb here. However, CeeDee Lamb, after his week 2 performance, in which he saw 11 targets, and let me bounce back to the league that I have him in so that I can confirm that. He saw what? Yeah, 11 targets, 7 catches, 75 yards. I was a little worried about the old, replacement quarterback back there, but it's now 2 weeks in a row that he's seen 11 targets. We'd love to see that. He has the Giants, Washington, LA, Philly, Detroit, and Chicago coming up. I think I'm okay on CeeDee Lamb. I was worried, but you hold CeeDee Lamb. You trust that he is clearly their number 1 receiver, number 1 pass catcher. We move on from there. I'm going to make number 4 then a combined guy, two different players. And we've touched on to both of these guys so far this week or this show. Ezekiel Elliott, not looking hyper efficient with those touches. And those touches are not in an offense that has Dak Prescott. And Travis Etienne, whom has been basically pushed to the side because of James Robinson's miraculous return. Now, I make this a combined one, and I'm rationalizing it by being a combined one because I think I'm most worried about Ezekiel Elliott because of the fact that Tony Pollard is there, because of the fact that you don't have Dak Prescott, and this offense maybe isn't exactly as potent as we anticipated. Travis Etienne is a young running back who has history with Trevor Lawrence. They both went to Clemson together and they played together. James Robinson is an undrafted running back who's coming off of an Achilles tear and is like playing incredibly coming off of that. But like despite how little Travis Etienne has been used so far through the first 2 weeks of the season, I feel like there's a narrative for him to be more involved in the Jaguars offense moving forward. Ezekiel Elliott, this might be what Ezekiel Elliott is this season, which is not great.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, that's me rambling.
The Cooper Rush led offense, we see frequently backup quarterbacks come in and have a couple good games. Defenses don't know what the opposing side's going to do because the coaches change it up to suit the backup quarterback, and there's not a lot of tape out there on the backup quarterback. So good for CeeDee Lamb. Hopefully the injury for Dak isn't going to be too long lasting because 4, 5, 6 weeks of Cooper Rush, I think that
it's going to get old fast.
Discover the Nick Bottaford style Gardner Minshew kind of deal.
Yep.
And so we'll see. It is worrisome for Ezekiel Elliott owners. CeeDee Lamb, I think the hype on CeeDee Lamb got way out of hand. And so if you took him in the second, third round, yeah, I am panicking. But at the same time, Dak should be back. It is a long season.
Yep.
And even if you don't like Cooper Rush, he's smart enough to throw it to CeeDee Lamb over and over and over.
You love the fact that he saw just as many targets with Cooper Rush as he saw with half of Dak Prescott.
Yeah. And with Etienne, I mean, he's going to keep getting run.
Yeah.
The front office spent a first round pick on him. He is going to continue to siphon touches away from James Robinson. James Robinson looks really good, but the Jaguars, I know they won last week, but they're not good either. So that we're in the same situation of like, how many points do we expect these teams to score? And then who's going to get them? Yeah, that's going to really negatively impact, all of these, even Tony Pollard, like that's going to negatively impact all of these guys. The one, I guess, kind of saving grace, if we see Tony Pollard get more run, is we're going to see that he's not a true lead back. And that will just give me a little bit of personal fantasy enjoyment, because everyone's saying like, oh, why don't you just put him in there? Zeke's watchable. It's like, there's a big difference between being 210 and 230, boys. There's a big difference. I hope he does well and proves me wrong. The Cowboys are going the wrong direction with Dak Prescott at quarterback, and with him missing time, boy, it's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's I would call my nearest bookie and put money on Mike McCarthy getting fired before Thanksgiving.
I mean, Sean Payton's coaching the Cowboys now.
Oh my God, it's.
I mean, we know
happening.
that.
We know that that's happening. Good talk, everyone.
After Mike McDaniel wins the AFC East.
Oh, Sean Payton's coming to win the NFC. Yeah, that is a sure bet. Number 3 player who I am worried about. I really, really, really want Kyle Pitts to be the Kyle Pitts that I know and love. But 3 targets in week 2 against the Rams. He's had 7 targets against the Saints in week 1. Caught 2 of them for 19 yards. He's had 19 yards in back-to-back weeks. He's had the exact same fantasy performance in back-to-back weeks. Not great when you are a Falcons team that has basically 2 guys catching the football, and one of those guys should be Kyle Pitts. Drake London shouldn't have a 30% target share. That doesn't. I mean, he looks great, but why did we spend a top 5? He should.
But Pitts should have 30% also.
Yes, thank you, Clark. Yeah. You don't spend a top 5 pick on a tight end and then just not target them. So I don't know if that's a Mariota issue. I don't know if that's an Arthur Smith issue, but I am starting to, I have, as someone who has Kyle Pitts in my home league, I have been meticulously researching what people around the interwebs, the other fantasy minds out there think about him. And he is pretty universally a buy low guy. People are pretty certain that because of his talent, because of the fact that the Falcons are just going to always be in shootout games because they just aren't a good team, Kyle Pitts eventually is going to just start putting up redonkulous numbers. Now, I want that to be true as well, but I'm nervous.
Yeah. I don't get it. He's open. I mean, you watch the games, he's open.
Yeah.
My worry meter with him is, this is a litany of good players on bad teams. Yes. And this is, I know this is redundant. It gets baked into ADP and it gets baked into us talking about these guys, but this is the problem with drafting really good players on bad teams. Like, there's no reason that Kyle Pitts shouldn't be getting the ball. There's absolutely no reason.
He should never see less than 7 targets a game.
But my worry meter on him is a 3 out of 5. So that means I'm very worried. I thought I was the smartest guy in the room, drafted Kyle Pitts, and what's his name? Plays for the 49ers. His name is George Kittle.
Yeah.
In our new startup dynasty league with some work friends this year. It's been rough at tight end so far this season.
Not great. Yeah. Yes. I
don't know. I mean, I don't see anything bad from Pitts when I watch the tape.
Yeah.
I mean, still looks like a giant, still has separation.
Yeah.
Mariota just is not very good. I mean, it's Desmond Ridder is going to be making an appearance sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, it's the target share that is terrifying to me. That's the thing that worries me the most, is the fact that he's just not seeing targets. Okay. Number two player who I'm most worried about, and maybe this is just because I am relying on him in one of my leagues, in a dynasty league, where I'm like, okay, this is my year, this is my window, I'm going all in. So I traded for him, but I'm thinking that Tom Brady is just not going to have a good year this year. First of all, it doesn't help that the Buccaneers' entire offensive line is banged up and mostly injured. So that's basically one thing to ultimately destroy Brady. The other thing is that their pass catchers can't stay healthy through 2 weeks. Mike Williams is suspended for 1 week, but Chris Godwin is injured. Julio Jones, who looked great in week 1, is dealing with injuries. It just feels like this is an offense that is not going to be what we saw last year in terms of the stats that Brady was able to put up. And also Brady just doesn't seem to be healthy right now. There were those pictures that went around of a press conference where he just looks gaunt. He looks exhausted. He looks like the old marriage strife is maybe weighing on him. Maybe he shouldn't have come back out of retirement to play for the 50th season. I don't know. If I have, and I do have Tom Brady, Tom Brady to me is like, I am at this point now, I am seriously thinking about trading. I'm like, I not so much trading Tom Brady, but like, I need to get another quarterback in my house. I need to go out and I need to get someone on this team, because Tom Brady is not going to be putting up the elite quarterback 1 numbers that I anticipated given how he played last year.
Yeah, I think we should rebrand this to Pete's underperforming fantasy.
The players
options
on Pete's team that he is worried about.
Yeah. I'm not worried about Brady. I agree. It's looked bad. Saints defense is tough. They're running around out there, and they said it on the broadcast a million times. There are certain divisional matchups that are just weird.
Yeah.
And I hate to provide that level of analysis, but they are weird.
It's so true.
Like, and the Saints versus the Bucks is one of them. Bucks are 2-0. Yeah, guys are dropping left and right, but it's like it's the new betting against James Robinson. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to bet against Tom Brady. I'm not worried. They got the Packers, the Chiefs, the Falcons coming up. I mean, these are all good matchups. The Steelers will be tough, I think, with their pass rush, even without TJ Watt. But Pete, don't be worried. I'm about a 2 on the worry meter with Tom Brady. It's okay.
Okay. Does it change your mind at all? Adam Levitan of Establish the Run tweeted out today that they just created a analytics player comp tool where you can put in a player and they project how they look through the history annals of time and how a similar spot has fared historically. Through the 2 weeks, Tom Brady's top comps are 2021 Ben Roethlisberger.
No.
That sinks me to a whole nother level.
So Establish the Run does amazing work.
They're garbage. Wow, Clark, that's a hot take.
Amazing work. Great podcast, great site. But there are a ton of things that you can do with analytics to tell the story that you want to tell. And Tom Brady has established himself as an outlier amongst outliers. Mm-hmm. So all right. That doesn't change anything for me.
Clark going up to bat for a fellow old man in a young man's league.
I mean, look, we spent so much time going over all these machinations and stuff, but he either is or isn't. Yes. We don't know. We don't fucking know. If you knew, you wouldn't be doing this.
You would not be playing fantasy football.
You would be on an island making 3 prop bets a week. I mean, but anyway, we like to talk about it. We like to try to divine what's going to happen. But, divination with science is the same as divination with faith. So we shall see.
My number 1 player who I'm most worried about, Clark, after 2 weeks, I have him in not a single one of my rosters. So I can, it is This is a fact. This is nothing personal about this. This is just a fact. And I know you're going to agree with me because you were worried about him last week. Kadarius Toney is just the player whom at this point, I'm just like, is a 5 on the panic scale, because we were all freaking out after week 1, in which he played 7 snaps, ran the ball twice for 23 yards, looked absolutely incredible. And we were like, okay, maybe this is Daboll just sending a message. We're going to have it, week 2. Let's see what his usage is. Well, his usage in week 2, he played 38% of the snaps and saw 3 targets and caught 2 of them for 0 yards.
Yeah, he had a really BS pass interference call on a broken down play. Daniel Jones is scrambling. A Giants wide receiver. I'm serious. I'm not a Giants fan. I don't care. He happens to run into a cornerback because they're all kind of watching.
Move into the same spot.
Yeah, they're all kind of watching the quarterback, and Tony's wide open. Daniel Jones underthrows the hell out of him, so he has to stop and catch the ball. Would have been like 20, 30-yard pass. Gets called back from, just absolute BS call on pass interference. I am worried about Kadarius Toney. I should not have just looked past everything that's going wrong in New York. Daniel Jones is the quarterback. All of this talk about Toney not getting along with previous coaching staff, good, you shouldn't. Current coaching staff, you had an opportunity to change. You might have wanted to take that. Maybe. I don't know. We don't know the story. Maybe.
We don't know. But it is noteworthy that there were trade rumors coming during leading up to the draft and around the draft. And nothing has come of this yet, but there was all kinds of drama from the Giants beat writers that Kenny Galladay's locker was just cleared out and he was just gone after the week 2 game against the Panthers. It feels like this staff it's a new staff. They want to build this team, and Daboll has a plan clearly for what this team is. And I don't know if Kadarius Toney is in that plan. And if Kadarius Toney is not in that plan, clearly Daboll has shown us that he's just not going to play until they trade him. And so I don't have any Toney shares, so I can't say that I'm out on him and I'm getting rid of him. But I am clearly the most worried about Kadarius Toney right now in fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, we argued all offseason about how talented he was, and it's coming to not matter. Yeah. Or it may not matter if he doesn't get the playing time. He did see a lot more playing time in week 2 than he saw in week 1. What's going to make me feel better is if we see Daniel Jones realize Kadarius Toney's on the field, make sure he knows what route he's going to run. I'm going to throw it to him. Yeah. Because they are throwing it to a litany of let's just be nice and say not fantasy rostered wide receivers.
Yes.
And who's there? It looks like it.
There? All right, I got to bring up
Sterling Shepard might be their leading wide receiver. His name got called.
But let's also David Sills. David Sills saw 4 targets and 3 catches against the Panthers and played 92% of the snaps. David Sills.
Yeah,
go look what he looks like on Google.
And I believe he's one of those lunch pail guys.
I believe he comes from the Hunter Renfrow, except he's much bigger than Hunter Renfrow, but the similarly athletically inclined.
As the superstars on the broadcast would say, he's a football player.
He's a man.
And there is so much concern that a new coach is going to gravitate towards that instead of being like, look, we'll worry about this next year. I have this incredible superstar who's probably the second best player on the team, and we're just going to use it.
Use that superstar. Before we go, Clark, is there anyone who you felt should have been in my top 5 for worry?
I had some not worry players. So, Christian McCaffrey finally got going. Yes. Derrick Henry was one of my don't worry about it players.
Okay.
All my other guys are just kind of fringe and injury guys. So where's Josh Jacobs? Stop messing around. Los Angeles and just give him the ball. George Kittle concerns me. I want to see you play now that Jimmy Garoppolo's gonna play. I mean,
that to
if
me
Kittle
is
gets on the field.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Is that like with Trey Lance, there was uncertainty. I mean, he was never going to not utilize George Kittle because George Kittle is such a phenomenal talent. But Jimmy G being the quarterback for the 49ers now with George Kittle, we know there's a connection there. We know George Kittle puts up tight end 1 numbers with Jimmy G at quarterback. So that's a pairing that, once Kittle is healthy and on the field, let it ride.
I do have one. I have one super panic player.
Perfect.
We mentioned the Bears. What has happened to Darnell Moody?
Yes, he was on my list. And I ultimately asked him, but yes. It also doesn't help that Justin Fields has thrown the ball 11 times through 2 weeks. And I know one of those games was in a monsoon, but even if it's just one game, you shouldn't have 11 attempts in one game as a NFL quarterback, especially if you're the future of the franchise. Yeah, Darnell Moody completely disappearing has been not good.
I'm worried. Tweet at us
last week.
If you know what's wrong with Darnell Moody. Did he not go to the movies with Justin Fields like they had planned? Is there what happened?
What happened? We need to know.
Do people go to the movies still?
I think so. We just went to the movies recently. Bex and I did. We saw Dope. It was good. Not Dope. That was an old movie that we saw too. Nope. The Jordan Peele new one.
All right. Well, good for moviegoers then. That's good. I'm glad movie theaters still exist. You heard it here first.
The resident old man has spoken. All right. Well, that's all we got for you this week. Please rate and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at NerdBallFF. You can follow myself on Twitter at Pete M. Rogers. Follow Clark at NFL Clark. And of course, make sure you check out all the amazing content that we are putting out over on the site at nerdballff.com. Like I alluded to, my Roast and Ghosts, those are top starts and sits for week 3 is dropping tomorrow. So make sure you check out that. We got rankings and we got all kinds of good stuff, including a whole bunch of DFS content for those who are DFS inclined. Until next week, my fellow nerds.